All right, Ledesma, let's take a look here, and we are going to review the metric system today. And specifically, we're going to focus on converting centimeters to millimeters today. So we have to back through the basics of the metric system. Remember, the base unit in the metric system is the meter, and 100 centimeters equals a meter. And we can also remember that also equal to the meter is 1,000 millimeters. So if we do the math here, we know that to get from 100 to 1,000, you have to multiply by 10. So we can conclude that 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. And indeed, that is two very common units of measurement when you're measuring small things. And today we're going to be talking about converting between them. So if 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters, that means to get from centimeters to millimeters, you are going to multiply by 10. To get from centimeters to millimeters, you're going to multiply by 10 because you will need more of the smaller unit, which is millimeters, to equal the same number of centimeters. So 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. And similarly, if you had 2 centimeters, you would end up with 20 millimeters, right? And you would get that by multiplying by 10. So same idea here. You could have 3 centimeters, and if you multiply that by 10, you would go ahead and draw the math out, and you would say 3 times 10, which then gives you 30 millimeters. And that would, in fact, equal 3 centimeters, right? So that's how you get from centimeters to millimeters. And that can work with bigger numbers too. Let's say you got all the way up to 12 centimeters, right? And if you were measuring 12 centimeters, you would say, okay, I want to figure out how many millimeters that is. That is 12 times 10 will give me the millimeters. And so now I know it is 120 millimeters is equivalent to 12 centimeters, okay? Now there may be more complex problems that come your way. What if they give you the millimeters first? So what if they were to say something like, oh, 140 millimeters, and they want to know how many centimeters that is? Well, that's okay. To get from the smaller unit to the bigger unit, so this time you're going to go from millimeters, right, to centimeters. To get from the smaller unit, which is millimeters, to the bigger unit, you need to divide by 10. So that's what we're going to do in this case. We're going to take 140 millimeters. We're going to divide that by 10. Okay, now when you divide by 10, remember that you can cross off a zero, and you will end up, you're going to take a zero away because there's 1 0 and 10, and you will end up with 14 centimeters, which equals 144 millimeters. And if you think about it, it makes sense because if you go the other way and you take 14 centimeters, multiply that 14 by 10, you would get 140. You would get millimeters, right? So if you multiply by 10, you add a zero. If you divide by 10, you take a zero away. Okay? So now you may end up with an even more complex problem. Let's say you had something a little more complicated that was, oh, let's say 5 centimeters and 9 millimeters, right? Now, if it was 5 centimeters and 10 millimeters, well, that would be 6 centimeters. So it's a little bit less than 6 centimeters, right? Okay, but we want to know how many millimeters would that be? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our 5 and we are going to multiply that by 10, right? And then we already have our millimeters right here, so we're just going to leave that alone. But 5 by 10 will give you 50 millimeters, and then you would have to add your 9 millimeters. And so your answer ends up being, in this case, 59 millimeters. And let's go ahead and estimate that for a second. Let's see. Well, if it was 10 millimeters here, that would be another centimeter. So that would be 6 centimeters. 6 centimeters times 10 would be 60 millimeters. So by estimating, I can see that my answer here for 5 centimeters and 9 millimeters is fairly reasonable. Okay, let's take a more complex one this time. Let's go ahead and take, let's go with 15 centimeters and 4 millimeters. Okay, well, 15 centimeters and 4 millimeters. Well, okay, if we have that, what are we going to do with it? Well, let's go ahead and think about that for a second. 10 millimeters equals a centimeter. So we're going to multiply this part by 10, and we're going to get 150 millimeters right here, right? But then we have to add back this 4 millimeters. So we're going to say plus 4 millimeters. And our final answer will, in this case, be 154 millimeters. And that's how you are going to convert from centimeters into millimeters. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you practice, and I hope you keep learning lots and lots of math. So once again, remember to get from centimeters to millimeters, you multiply by 10. And if you should choose to go backwards from millimeters to centimeters, then you will divide by 10. Bye. Have a great day.